Hi, everyone. Welcome to our talk today on maintaining a positive well-being organized by Mind the Bleed. And today we have our speaker, Dr. Christine Muhota, who will be delivering today's lecture.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for your time to come here at 7, or if you're watching on demand, thank you so much for coming. So I'm Dr. Christine Muhota. I am a current F1. I'm just coming to the end of F1. I work in Birmingham and I trained in Cardiff Uni. So it's been a year. It's gone really fast, and I can't wait to just give you some tips and advice about how to maintain your well-being and your mental health through this year. Importantly to mention, I'm also the CEO of a national charity called Mind Health for medical students, and we are doing this talk in collaboration with Mind the Bleed, because we know that this time can be quite a sort of difficult time for some people, and it can be quite nerve-wracking. So I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully this is going to be a really helpful webinar for you. And I hope that by the end of it, you'll see the most important things that I think were really helpful in my year, and hopefully will be helpful for yours. I'm just going to share my screen and let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay. Hamza, can you see my screen okay?
We can see it.
Amazing. So like I said, this webinar is maintaining a positive wellbeing as an F1. It's by Mind Health medical students, and I am Christine. So first of all, just getting started, if you have just graduated from medical school, me and my team at Mind Health just want to say to you a massive congratulations on getting through med school. You're now a whole doctor. Welcome to the doctor life. And the first thing really is that this is a massive milestone. And if you did manage today, and in general, it is a new chapter of your life. It's an exciting chapter of your life. But I know from experience, it can have mixed feelings and mixed emotions, but most of all, just massive congratulations. Now, coming on to that, I just want to let you guys know it is completely normal to feel a huge range of emotions right now. Obviously, the positive side of just graduating, you've made your family proud, you've made yourself proud, you've worked really hard to get this amazing degree, and you're starting a new job, which is amazing and it's exciting. Maybe some of you are moving to a different city or moving back home, and you can have those great feelings, or you can actually feel quite anxious. You can feel quite stressed. You don't really know what's coming. And Hamza, if you could help me with the chat, I just wanted you guys just to have a moment and just to really reflect. How are you feeling about starting F1? I am aware that some of you have your inductions this week. And what are you most worried about, if anything? I would just love to know, just in general, how you're feeling. Hamza, if you could let me know, that would be amazing. Thank you.
So feel free to put your responses in the chat, guys.
Yeah, please feel free. Yeah, I definitely remember starting off, and I was just both excited, I was both stressed. So I think it's completely normal to have it all.
So worried about prescribing or being asked to do jobs which they're not sure of how to do it.
Okay, yeah, that's 100% valid. Worried about prescribing, I think I will tell you later in the talk about things that would alleviate that stress, for example, what apps to use, and also if you're using kind of paper prescribing versus digital prescribing. Digital prescribing is much easier. And I think in terms of being told jobs that you need to do that you're not sure of, again, we're going to cover that in terms of who to ask and why. That tells me that you care. The fact that you care about prescribing well, you care about doing a good job. These are all things that are, again, normal, and again are reassuring to me as well. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing. Don't worry, we'll cover this, and I'm going to give some time at the end as well for Q&A. I just think sometimes you don't really get a break to just go, oh, how am I actually feeling right now? So yeah, I hope that was a bit of time just to reflect on that. Now, what are we going to cover today? So just giving you a bit of an introduction into myself, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about Mind Health for Medical Students, the charity. We're also going to cover the anxieties and the common challenges of starting off as an F1. We're also going to talk about how to deal with stressful patients and what's the importance of actually asking for help early. Also, the importance of handing over and knowing it's okay to hand jobs over, and booking annual leave as soon as you can, and also taking breaks from medicine. We're going to talk about recognizing the signs of excessive stress, fatigue, and burnout, and also who can you ask for help if you're struggling, now that we don't sort of have like a personal tutor at uni and things. And also, like I mentioned, the Q&A right at the end. So a little bit of a disclaimer before we get started. This webinar is going to be filled with tips and advice on behalf of our charity, Mind Health for Medical Students, on good mental health and wellbeing practice in F1 that could be helpful for you. It is gathered from myself and also other doctors' experiences that have asked for their input into this. When you start F1, you might actually experience things completely differently, and we hope that through your own experience, you develop your own healthy coping strategies. There are some things that no one can prepare you for F1, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to deal with it. It's just see what comes and see how you're going to be like, okay, how do I solve this, and solve through it slowly. This webinar does not replace any form of support that you're going to get at your specific trust, and it also does not replace any medical advice from any health professional, such as your GP. In fact, at Mind Health, I really encourage people to seek help if you do feel like you do need it. Also, just to stress, this is a completely safe space to ask questions. Ask me anything, more than happy to answer. So just to start off, what is Mind Health for Medical Students? We are an award-winning registered charity in the UK. We were founded in November 2021. It is the only UK charity that actually works specifically to impact medical student mental health and well-being. And actually what we're trying to do. So our vision really is to empower medical students. I know that you're not a medical student at the moment, you've obviously finished. However, you're still in that transitional phase. And I think that this talk is still relevant. And I think in terms of the charity, empowering medical students to be proactive, equipped and supported so that they can achieve their full potential. And also we'd really like to integrate mental health and wellbeing teaching into medical education as well in the future. So just a brief overview of what we do as a charity. We're on social media, so we run social media campaigns where we share stories, we share tips, we share books, we share relevant information. If you want to follow us at Mind Health UK, you'll get all the information there. It's really, really lovely, and it's a great team that runs that. We also run wellbeing workshops across the country. We do national research and also supervise. We've written an online wellbeing survival guide for med students, and I know that Mind the Bleep also have an FY1 survival guide as well, which I think is incredibly helpful. If you haven't already skimmed that, it'd be great. And we also collaborate with projects such as this and with university and student societies as well. Okay, so let's sort of break things down a little bit. So let's talk about the anxieties and the common wellbeing challenges of starting F1. So one thing that's really common that I've experienced myself, and also just talking to people more recently who are coming on board for induction, is this anticipation anxiety. You don't know why you're stressed, but you're stressed. You know, you haven't quite started, but you know, and I think a lot of it is we've just been through years and years of med school, 5, 6, 7 years of medical school, where you sort of knew lectures, exams, you know, it's a bit more, you knew what's coming. Whereas you can get anticipation anxiety with not knowing, you know, what's going to come next. Is F1 really as hard as people say it is? And it is challenging. It's a very challenging phase of your medical career, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. And it's challenging for different reasons. It's how you learn how to be a good doctor. It's how you learn how to apply everything you know. And anticipation anxiety, again, is normal. Some of you might be moving to a new city, completely new city, new people, or you might be staying in the same place but different hospital. Some people also find that quite easy. Some people struggle. I like I said, I work in Birmingham and I went to Cardiff Uni, so I moved to a brand new city, didn't know many people, house shared for the first 9 months. You know, it was all quite difficult actually at the beginning, but that was because there was just quite a lot of change. But you know what, I can honestly, hands on heart, say honestly, a year on, this is my home. You know, like it's absolutely fine. You will get there, and the first few couple of weeks will feel like a rabbit in the headlights, but actually that is normal. Another thing is fatigue. Now, what I mean by fatigue is I'm not saying F1 is going to be absolutely exhausting every day. It's going to be terrible. What I'm trying to say here is no one really told me that when you first start F1, the first month to 2 months, the first few months, you will feel tired. Now, what I mean by tired is you're learning new information, you're learning how new computer systems work, how the hospital is situated, what your responsibilities are, how to manage patients. You're gaining quite a lot of information, and with that, your brain is trying to process all of that, and you might just feel a bit more tired than normal. You might also have done on calls for the first time or done nights for the first time. This fatigue in the first few months is normal. It's not that you're not able to cope with it. It's not that you're unfit, is what I was thinking. It's not that. It's just you're processing so much in new information, and that's a good thing, because trust me, by the time you guys get to October, November, December, Christmas, you'll be laughing. Like, it's so interesting how you go from med school to this sort of anticipatory learning curve, and it is a shock to learning curve, and then somehow you settle, and you will get there. I think it's just to know that what is normal and what isn't. Now we're going to talk about taking annual leaves, taking lunch breaks, and how to actually hand over. And some people worry about how to manage really sick patients. And actually, some people see traumatic things at work. You might be involved in quite sad situations at work. And even if not, you might go home if you think you've not prescribed very well. You might take things home with you. How do you deal with that? And some people worry a lot about not knowing enough. I know I did, not knowing enough medicine, or how do I add things that we're going to hopefully cover in this talk and beyond. But all I can say is a lot of people are going through this, and there's a swan in the background of this talk. It's called the swan effect, which is what a lot of people do when they come to a new job or come to a new place, where by face front, everyone looks like they've got it together. Everything is absolutely fine. But at the bottom of the lake, the swan is paddling. And that feeling may last for a few weeks, and that is okay. You just need to know how to manage that. And you know what? The swan effect, in terms of feeling like an imposter syndrome and things like that, will last whenever you change jobs. It's just part of the human just existence, to be honest. So I think in general you will be okay. We just need to get you through the first couple of weeks. So a lot of people ask me, I'm going into induction, what do I need to know? This is something that could alleviate stress, is knowing details that if you were to get these sorted out in the first 2 to 3 weeks of your job, if not the first week, it will help you be less stressed. Number one is your IT logins. The only way you're gonna know it works is if you try it out on the first day, and you get there on the first day. Mine didn't work. I had to call IT, get them to unlock it, change the password, all of that. Okay, that also happens, and it happens across different trusts. So make sure you've got your IT login, and then if you can, try it out. Car parking permit, if that's something that you do and you do drive, just because you then know, right, at least I've got access to staff car park. I don't have to worry about leaving my car somewhere in a random street. But even if you leave your car somewhere in a random street, it is what it is. But I think if you do have a car parking permit, it just made it a little bit more like, okay, that part is safe. This is one thing, right? We tend to think about, where we're going to be, what's going to happen if we're on nights or on call, or, we're sort of thinking about the worst case scenario. I know I definitely did when I was starting F1. What is really good to find out is, where are you going to be? Where are you supposed to be on that first day? When you get through that first day, you're going to get home and think, wow, I've done it. I'm not talking about like the induction days. I'm talking about like your actual first day as a job, but also your induction. Like, do you remember you're entering into a pool? You might not know everybody there, but also, where are you meant to be on the first day of your job? Where is the ward? How do you get from the car park to the ward? I know they sound really like mundane things, but it is quite stressful. Some trusts do offer you the opportunity of shadowing other F1s, so that if you are allowed to do that, then that would be really great. Another thing to find out in induction weeks is, where do you meet for your handover if you're on call, and where do you pick up the bleep? So, for example, in my trust, there's a certain room that we go to in the morning where the night team hand over to the day team if we're on call, and you literally exchange the bleeps. Some trusts do paper handovers, but essentially, where do you meet for these things? And if you forget it, please message the SHO chat, ask the rota coordinators. We are all prepared to help you guys. We all know you're coming. We all know that what it felt like starting off, and we're all here to help you. But in terms of things that are really helpful, because I felt like induction week, you do get a lot of information. And actually, these are the things that I picked out that helped me post that week, if that makes sense. Know who your rota coordinator is and what their email is. This is to be able to book annual leave as soon as you possibly can. I will talk more to this about this in a minute, but if you've got your rota and you know who your rota coordinator is, start booking your annual leave days. You get 9 days per rotation, and even if you don't have plans, if you can get somewhere, you look at your rota and you can get somewhere where, oh, if I take 2 days off here, I can get 5 days off because it's near a weekend or beginning or end of a week. That's great. Or if you've got a family event, you've got pre-planned holidays, this is the time to let them know, right, even before you begin, because when it comes to about sort of September, October, people obviously get settled in, which is great, and that's when people leave the annual leave so far that they can't actually really get the dates they want. Even if you want to spread it out, what I'd advise is once, I'll talk about this in a minute, but once every 6 weeks, have a break, have something to look forward to. Next thing is to know where the doctor's mess is, and also where you're going to buy hot food, where you're going to buy coffee. Like, these are things that are really, really important. And also confirm that your payroll has your card details. So IT, car permit, where you're going to be on your first day, where you're expected to work, where you're going to meet for handover, your rota coordinators, where the doctor's mess is, and also confirm payroll has your details. So another thing that people worry about is stressful patients. So it's not the patients being stressful, it's them causing you stress because of their condition, and they might be quite a mild patient. You might be the one on the ward who goes there first. You might be called by the nurse to come and actually examine and manage this deteriorating patient. And I know this is something that people are really stressed about. And in OSCEs, you know, A to E approach, A to E approach. They almost drum it into you, A to E approach. And let me tell you, that is all you can do. A lot of trusts, the SHO tends to do the A to E approach if they're with you. And I'm sure at the beginning you won't, you know, you shouldn't really be alone anyway. But what I'd say is, you've got a patient in front of you, whatever their condition is, whatever, you know, something that might seem quite minor to a reg might be quite major for you. For example, you know, you get taught, I remember seeing a patient, actually I'm going to give an example. I remember having a patient with hyperkalemia. Now, I remember at med school, hyperkalemia, you know the numbers, you know the treatment, insulin, dex, and it was all in me. And I had, you know, the app I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. I had the app, I looked at the treatment, okay. But then the patient wasn't getting any better despite the treatments. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And I straight away went to the reg, I went to the ITU critical care outreach team, and I was like, this patient is not getting well, what do we do? They were there within minutes and they were super helpful. So basically, just remember A to E and ask for senior help early. They are there for a reason. And also ask when you first start, where do you find your trust guidelines on the intranet? Because these vary just slightly in terms of how you manage a patient. If you can't find it, go with the NICE guidelines and use the BNF. You never be penalized in court for that. Now, a lot of people tell me, well, how do you know when to call a senior? Like, how do you know when to ask for help? And at the bottom of the screen, I've got trust yourself. You have gone to medical school for X amount of years. You know what you're talking about. When you see a person, you know this is a sick person. Don't wait to see if they deteriorate. Trust your gut feeling. And that's what a consultant said to me, is that, Christine, your gut feeling's pretty good. It's pretty on point. And I didn't know that much. I didn't, you know, I knew a lot, but I didn't know why they weren't well. But I called him and I said, this patient doesn't look well. You know, their SATs are dropping. Their blood pressure's dropping. You know, they got high temperature. Yes, it was sepsis, but they also had loads of other things going on, and I trusted that. And I thought, yes, we're managing them with antibiotics, but why are they not getting better? Trust your gut instinct and ask for help. Nobody is going to come down on you by saying, hey, look, this patient looks quite unwell. Can you just take a second look? I would rather do that with my F1 than come to a crash call, to be honest. So there's 4 apps that I used this year. Now, when I was starting, there's so much information. There's so many apps out there that you can use for everything. I use these 4, and the only ones I genuinely did use down here. The I is called Induction. If you go on the App Store, Induction, you can find the extension numbers for any hospital in the UK. When you sign in, it asks you at the top, find hospital. I work at Sandwell City Hospital, so I had them too on Induction. Whatever hospital you work in, you can find the extension numbers, and you can also find the extension numbers of other hospitals. So If, for example, your hospital is a DGH, it's not a major trauma centre, you can still find the contact details of neighbouring hospitals. There's also this app, which is an absolute lifesaver, called Foundation Doctor. It's on the App Store, it's got this little red stethoscope. Let me tell you, every time I've been on call, it has assessments, it has the management plan, it has the guidelines, it has calculators, it has the basics of pretty much every major emergency that you can get. And this was really helpful, particularly at the beginning of F1. Even now, I still use it. When I'm taking a history, I just sort of skim it and think, okay, have I covered all these points? Obviously, I collate the management on this app with guidelines, but generally speaking, especially the assessment bit, is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant app. MicroGuide is also great. Again, you can sync it to your trust as well to see what their own microbiologists want you to prescribe. And again, BNFC, you know about that one. Now, another thing is, I'm going to bang on about this, is asking for help. People say, well, how do you make that call? How do you ask for help? So, for example, you've got a patient, you got given a job, for example, contact hematology and ask them to come and review the patient. And you're thinking, is it the hematology SHO? Is it the reg? Is it the consultant? How do I call them? Sometimes, and especially at the beginning of F1, I remember calling people that I thought were the right people, but they weren't. And nobody was nasty about it. Like, we all know you start a new job. And this is basically, I've put this here as this is what I used to say when I wasn't sure if, or even if I was sure it was the right specialty, for example, if it was a cardiology reg, this is what I would say. And I know that we get taught SBAR and we get that drilled into us, but especially at the beginning of F1, I found it quite helpful. So I would say, hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I'm Christine. I'm one of the new F1s at Sandwell General Hospital, and I would really like some help and some advice with a patient on ward 32B with a possible PE, please. And the thing is, it sounds quite desperate, but it's not, because you're saying, I want some help and advice. Here is where I am. This is what the patient has. And do a small SBAR. What have you done already? You know, what's their obs like? And a lot of people, especially at the beginning, will always ask, oh, what are the patient's details? And every single patient has a patient identification number, and it tends to be on the screen in front of you. And most people who are doing electronic work will be able to find the patient and help you. So basically, like, if nothing else from this talk, is ask for help. It is absolutely okay. I've asked for help for things that I felt like I should know, but I just wasn't sure, and that's totally fine. And then they've replied and said, oh yeah, do this. And I was like, oh, that is right. So I do know what I'm doing, and it helps build your confidence. For example, I had a patient with heart failure who was had peripheral edema all the way up to their hip, and I knew I need to start furosemide. But then I looked at their kidney function, and their eGFR was incredibly low, and I thought, okay, what do I do? Do I still give furosemide? Do I still give fluids? What should I do? And I contacted the cardiology reg. I told him exactly what I've written on the screen, and he said, yes, you can prescribe fluid for this patient, but a very small amount of fluid over a longer time, and let's hold the furosemide. And although I did think, oh, maybe I shouldn't prescribe it, just checking with somebody is all you want to do. You want to be safe, if absolutely nothing else. Okay, so this is really, really, really important. Is I really want to touch on the importance of handing things over. So 3 things: handing things over, taking breaks, and booking annual leave. So let's start with handing things over. When you start F1, you're going to end up, you may not work that fast. What I mean by that is, you know, new systems, new patients, new ways of working. Even if you're going to go bleed a patient, you know, you've got to find the treatment room, the code for it, and things like that. It is okay. It's okay if it takes you an hour to do something. It's actually normal. If it takes you more than that, it's normal. When you first start something, it's like babies running to, you know, when we're babies, we want to crawl before we walk, before we run. These are small processes, and as long as, I think, as in medical school, and also when we're starting to being a doctor, we have this massive expectation that, you know, we should know everything. And trust me, nobody expects that. All I'm asking is, when you are working and you get to your time, so you're working 9 to 5 job, when you get to 5 p.m, you should have maybe done all the major jobs. What I mean by that is any scans, any bloods, any discharge letters. And when you come to 5 p.m. and you haven't done some of these things, especially in the first couple of months, please call the person who is on the sort of twilight who's actually covering the bleep and tell them, look, I'm a new F1, this is my name, this is how much I've done of this job, give them the patient number and hand over, and do not apologize for handing over. A lot of the time people would be like, oh, I'm really sorry that I've got to give you this. You have to protect yourself from right from the beginning, because unfortunately some people could take advantage of that, and they're like, oh yeah, the F1's going to stay here for an extra 2 hours. And if you do end up staying because a patient is unwell, which does happen, you can also instant report that, and you instant report it as the time, as overtime, and you do get paid for that. At the beginning, if I stayed half an hour, I wouldn't really report it, because I thought that probably, is my lunch break, or maybe I've just done something a bit slower. But as you get through it, if you're staying somewhere past any time past when you're meant to be, just instant report it. The first couple of weeks you might not, up to you, but I would definitely encourage you to instant report anything above half an hour. Like, just put it in, say I've stayed over this time, because it's cumulative. You might stay, oh, I've only stayed for an hour today, or 10 minutes next day, and over the end of the month you've given 15, 16 hours for free. Also, it protects you and it gets you into a habit of, my job is 9 till 5. I need to work hard from 9 till 5 to ensure I've done as many of these jobs as possible. But that is the reason we've got teams. That's the reason you've got on-call team. That's the reason you've got someone who is meant to pick up that handover, is that we have to give that responsibility to someone else. And over time, you will learn what's kind of okay to hand over, I guess. Like, some people don't like getting handed over discharges, because if you're really going home, then you've done this earlier. But at the beginning, just try to ask and be like, is this something that you would hand over? Is this something that I should stay behind and try and finish off quickly? Is this something that we could do together? And when I say handing over, I mean, even within the daytime, if there is a job that you don't know what it is or what you're doing, ask your SHO, ask your F2, they've just been there, ask the registrar, ask the nurse in charge, and they will help you. We are literally ready to help. I can't explain how much we're already kind of prepped in terms of people coming in. Like, please ask, hand over some jobs. And I think even when my F1 start, I would probably pick up some of those jobs and just show them how to do it. Please, when you get to the end of your shift, pick up that phone, introduce to them exactly the way I said before, if you want, and say, I've got a handover, I've got to go home. Because like I said, the fatigue you could get over the first few months, if you're living 2 hours late every single day, you are going to burn out very quickly. Next thing is taking breaks from medicine. There's something called well-being days. So if you feel that you are just really tired or you need a break, you can also call in, and it doesn't count as a sick day. It's just a day off to just recover. And then going back to annual leave as well. I keep banging on about this because I think it's really, really important. I think no one really told me how important it was. Those 9 days do not carry over. You need to take them. Okay, it's a bit difficult at the moment because you might not know rotas, your friends might not know when they're free, they might have already got other things going on. But if you book your annual leave and you have sort of enough time, you can always correlate that with friends, and you can talk about, oh, what does your rota look like on, I'm not saying book it today, but I'm just saying try and think about those plans a bit earlier, and also when you're going to go home and things like that. A consultant told me this, and he said, plan a break or a weekend of proper rest, as in a weekend where you just have no plans, you're in your pajamas, in bed with a cup of tea, every sort of, at least every 6 weeks if possible, because you need time to recharge. And what I did wrong, and I genuinely think I did it wrong, at the beginning of F1, I was like, yes, I've got money, great. I booked every single weekend from August to October. Every single weekend had plans, whether to see people or to go out and to go explore, this new city, or to do shopping and stuff, which was great. But I can't tell you how exhausted I was, because I never had a day to just breathe, to just stop. And what I would say is, if you can, have maybe a weekend a month to yourself, or at least every 6 weeks, just breathe, just do something, have something booked just to look forward to. Also, like I said, you've got money, so you deserve to treat yourself, and that gives you more motivation as well. So One thing I really wanted to add was that the days as an F1 are going to be quite variable, depending on the shift pattern you have and the specialty. But what I would say to you is you can't control that. Think about what you can control yourself. For example, making sure that you're actually hydrated, making sure that you've had breakfast, and actually just being a nice person, going in. People who come in with just, although they might be absolutely bricking it inside, just coming in and just see how it goes and be nice and offer to help and offer to learn and be proactive. These are things that you can control, and the things that you can't control, for example, staffing issues. There is a lot of understaffing, obviously, with the pay restoration with the strikes. Please get involved. And also how many patients are on the take, for example, how many patients need to be clocked. These are things that you cannot control, and sometimes it can feel quite stressful. So like, oh, but do I need to do this? Think about, for the first couple of months at least, what can I control, and just do that, and nobody is going to come down on you at all for it. And just to add on to that, I had a really good first rotation, in the sense of that there was this SHO who was always like, right, it's time to have lunch, and you couldn't do anything else. It was like 1 p.m. every day we go and have lunch outside of the ward. And at first I was like, oh, but I've got so many jobs to do. Like, oh, I'm definitely gonna I might have to stay here longer after work. Like, do I go for a break? Do I eat my lunch in the office so I can still do the work? And she was like, no, 1 p.m. we're going for lunch. We're going to go sit in the cafe of the hospital. We're going to sit outside. We're going to just get out of this place and just have a proper break. You are entitled to have a break, as in you don't get paid for 8 hours, you get paid for 7.5 hours. You're actually entitled to have a break. And what I would say, my biggest advice to you guys, is because I had this SHO who was like basically saying, please go for a lunch, please go for lunch. He'd literally take my job list and go, doesn't need to be done before lunch. Nope. Oh, this one does need to be done. Come after this, and we're there to help you with that. But I really encourage you to train yourself to have a lunch break, and know that it's totally okay to have a lunch break. 20 to 30 minutes in a working day at least is completely acceptable. Like, it will make a massive difference and you'll be more productive. I am going to discourage you from eating inside the ward doctor's office, because people know where you are. They'll still ask you questions. They will apologize. They'll say, oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but they'll ask you the question. And it's good to kind of get a bit of separation from the ward. I think it's, if you're hospital and you're lucky enough to have somewhere that you can eat outside. Obviously now it's still August and well, it's raining, but British weather, maybe somewhere indoors in your hospital that is not your ward. I'd really encourage yourself, train yourself to have a lunch break. We deserve a lunch break, if not more breaks. What can help is if you're able to meal prep. That's great, because you have the lunch with you, therefore you've got to kind of eat it. Or if you want to just sort of see how it goes, buy food the first couple of weeks, that's also absolutely fine. But please have a lunch break. I'm just so glad that was instilled in me early on. Okay, now, how are you doing? How many people do you think actually ask each other, how are you doing? How was your day? How was your night shift? A lot of people ask, who's on call today? I've got a patient to hand over to. Blah, blah, blah. And no one, not say no one, but generally speaking, when you come into work, a lot of people, it's almost just telling you stuff. It's a lot of information. And actually, amongst yourselves, amongst new F1s, amongst your friends still at med school, amongst senior doctors, I've been trying to really encourage this, is actually genuinely ask somebody, how are you doing? I can guarantee you 95% of F1s starting right now are probably bricking it, or anxious, or they might be okay, they might be all right, but inside they're like, oh God, I hope it goes well. Of course, it's a new job, it's a new chapter, and it's exciting, and it's going to be good, and it's going to be fine, but it's still different from what you've done. And if you ask people, how are you doing? For example, someone who's post nights or post on calls, if you ask like, how are you doing, they'll be like, oh God, I'm so tired. And it might be obvious that they are tired, but actually just checking on each other. How are you doing? How, if you've had somebody who's been really sick patient, you've managed that patient, and maybe you're thinking about it, you've taken that home, you're still wondering how they're doing, discuss that with somebody. How are you doing? Like, generally speaking. And I remember the other day I called the switch and I was trying to get hold of someone, and they're like, hi, how can I help? And I was like, oh yeah, I'd like to talk to the rheumatology consultant, but also, how are you doing? And it really took her back. She was like, oh, oh, thanks for asking. I'm okay. Like, thank you so much for, we don't do that. Try and do it. See what responses you get. And within that, you're going to then start to recognize the signs of excessive stress, fatigue, and burnout in yourself and also your colleagues. This screen speaks for itself, and I won't sort of go through all of them, but however, so a certain amount of stress as a doctor is almost expected because of the type of job we're doing, especially in acute medicine or in surgical specialties, and in general, starting something new. You'll have a level of stress which keeps you going. It makes you go to induction. It makes you listen. It makes you make sure that you get there safely and things like that. What I found is one of my specialties that I did this year, found it really tough. Loved the people, but that generally the specialty itself was just really tough for me. And I found that I was more stressed, but I didn't necessarily notice it until I started having things like headaches. I was really tired. I was second guessing a lot of things that I was doing, even if I know that if someone's got bowel obstruction, I need to get a CT scan. But I was like, oh, but should I get this first before that? And it's because I was so just disconnected and I was stressed. And also I ended up losing my appetite completely. Didn't bother going for lunch. I was like, well, what's the point? And I started getting really, really stressed. And it's only until one of my friends was like, are you okay? Like, are you all right? And I was like, I don't think I am. But then I took some annual leave. I actually had some annual leave coming up, had a couple of days off, went on holiday with my family, came back, and I was like, oh, thank God, I actually really needed that. And I think when you are stressed and there's so many new things to do, it can just feel a little bit overwhelming. But we just need to recognize that there's a difference between, oh, I'm a bit stressed from starting something new, and I actually feel unwell with this. And that's when you really need to just pick up on those differences are really important for preventing burnout. I don't know if some of you have already read the recent GMC survey 2023 for trainees. Basically, burnout, unfortunately, is still on the rise across the UK, and over 2/3 of trainees are either at high or moderate risk of burning out. And that is due to a multitude of factors. But at the end of the day, we can't some of these factors we can't change as a single person. But at the moment, I want to empower you as the individual new doctor, that you can recognize this and you can put things in place early on, whether it's annual leave, well-being days, talking to your supervisors and things. You really need to sort of try to differentiate between, okay, I'm stressed because I actually have a lot of patients, to, oh, I'm actually feeling unwell now. So people say ask for help if you're struggling, but who do you actually ask? So this is a breakdown of what I think is quite helpful. You don't have to know every single one of these, and it might be different in your trust, but any clinical questions about patients or the workplace you're in, your SHOs, so that's your F2, the registrars you're going to have, and the consultants, they're going to know the patients better than a lot of people. And also the nurses are amazing. The nurse in charge, the nurses working in that bay with those patients know pretty much everything about the patients. If you're when you're doing a ward round and you're not sure if the patient, ask the nurse, do you have any concerns about this patient? They will tell you the unwell patient faster than you will find them. They know so much. Some of them have been there for such a long time. They're breath of knowledge. You've got to love the nurses. You've got to really ask them for help. There's physiotherapists as well to ask, and there's dietitians if you're unsure. I've also asked the dietitian to tell me about like the nutrition in somebody who is it's called like refeeding syndrome. They literally sat down and taught me about refeeding syndrome and like what that looks like and what bloods to take, and I didn't know that. And so they're really helpful. And also remember, when you're starting, and even just in general life now, no question is a silly one at all. And if they think it's silly, it's a problem with them, not a problem with you. Honestly, ask. I can't tell you the amount of stuff I asked just to be sure. Like, I was literally like, can I order an x-ray for this? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. And I was like, of course. Like, I literally think they've got pneumonia. Like, I need to order a chest x-ray. But I wasn't sure. And I asked, and it was fine. And that person didn't come down on me saying, oh God, that Christine didn't know. it's too busy for that, to be honest. But yeah, no questions silly one at all. And honestly, please, please, please escalate early. Like I said, trust your gut. If you think something's wrong with the patient, something probably is wrong with the patient, and you should ask. Any rota issues, know your rota coordinator, be best friends with them, and copy in your consultant. What I mean by consultant is either specialty consultant, your clinical supervisor, or educational supervisor. I find that I get a better response. And also for any shifts, swap, like nights or on calls, try your F1 group chat early. If you can't swap with people, so for example, sometimes you just can't swap, or you've got something really important like a wedding, there are also vacant gaps in some rotas where a certain weekend isn't filled yet, but they might have filled it sort of by then with locums and things. You can ask, is there also a vacant slot that I can do instead of this weekend? If you've done an on-call or a night shift, you should get an 11-hour break at least before your next shift is due back. So do tell your team. A lot of rotas circumvent this by basically giving you the rest of the day off. But if you're like in my trust as a DGH, sometimes you have 7-day weeks. That is quite normal in DGH. And sometimes you're on call Saturday, Sunday, and you're working Monday as a normal working day. But hey, I've just left work on the Sunday at 9:30, 10. I'm then not due back at work until about 9:10 the next day. And I tell my team, I'm sorry, I can't come in at 8. I need to be in at, I'll come in for 9 or 9:30. You need to have that time, and just text them, and they know this. Portfolio. A lot of people get stressed about this. I didn't really understand the Horus portfolio at the beginning, and I think that's quite normal. They will do talks and teaching sessions on Horus. It is also on the UK FPO website. My advice really is for the first 2 months, just get your head around the job, get your head around what's going on, how the systems work, who your edges are, who your SHOs are. If you do see interesting patients, make a note of them, but please don't feel pressured to like download Horus and sign in and start doing that on week 1. There's so much time to do it in the year. And I'd say I think I started my first rotation about October time, just doing a couple of cases, and have a look at the minimum as well. What I will say in terms of Horus is that your SHOs and your edges know about it. They've done it. They all might not like it very much, but you know what? You've got to be done. Your clinical supervisor then has to sign you off at the beginning, at the end of a placement, and also your educational supervisor as well. These people, if you know them already, email them and say, please, can we meet during the first 2 weeks of X and Y rotation, and just put a date in. They're very, very busy people. If you get a date in, and then when you go for that start meeting, get your end date in. What I will say about Horus is, although I'm not encouraging you to just leave it, don't just leave it, but I'm just saying the first month or 2, I mean, yeah, there might be other things that are the priority in terms of clinical practice, but it's still good to know about it, to know what's expected of it, and to print off that Horus checklist. What I would say is go to teaching. F1 teaching is a scheduled time that you are supposed to be off your ward and go to teaching. Teaching hours are quite hard to get hold of just at the end of the year if you've left it too late. That's what I would say, is definitely go to teaching, sign in the teaching and log it early. That's one thing I'd say. Don't just stay in. If possible, unless you're dealing with a really, really unwell patient, you can put stuff down and say, this is my protected time to go to teaching and I'm going to go. It will cause you a lot. It will be less stressful in the long run. Any concerns outside the workplace, you can approach your educational supervisors. I think you get the same one from the start of the year right till the end, so they'll get to know you pretty well. There's also helplines that I'll talk through, your friends that you've made, fellow F1s and your family. In terms of your mental health, guys, we have one life. We have one good life, and we decided to become doctors, which is amazing. But your well-being and your mental health matters more than anything, and there is no way you can safely treat patients if you're not well. But what I mean by that is if you're extremely exhausted, if you are depressed, if you're just finding even just doing the basic things really, really tough, please tell your team, say, look, guys, I didn't sleep very well last night. I might need a bit more support today. Absolutely fine. I'd rather that than me not have a clue where you are, what's going on. And also just try and get support. Trust me, we all need it. One thing I've learned that no one told me is you can't get through a working day without speaking to other people. Like, it's just a team effort. You can't somehow get through the day and just see just your patients and do that without speaking to other people. So other people might also pick things up for you. We're going to try and start wrapping up in a minute, but essentially, please feel free, like I said, to contact your clinical or educational supervisors, or use charities that do support mental health and well-being, for example, Mind Health, and also Papyrus, which is a suicide prevention charity for under 35s. Great charity. And also Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. Your GPs as well, and also the BMA Wellbeing Support Services. Mind Health has a website, mindhealthuk.org, and on there we've got this help hub, and there's a lot more. There's definitely a lot more resources there that are available, and also I'm aware that with Mind the Bleep, we're going to create a new wellbeing page that's going to hopefully bridge that gap between F1 and also being a 5th year. So please, if nothing else from this talk, ask for help clinically when you need it. Reach out for help. It is a brilliant, it's such a good year. Like, it's such a good year. You learn so much, and it can be challenging. So please get some help if you need. And remember to breathe. Remember to just breathe. Sometimes you feel like you're just like, I just need to sit down for a second. I've had so many sessions where I'm like, just breathe. What do I mean by that? Before this talk, and before anything that I'm slightly anxious on, I always do this. This works. I've taught this to a lot of students, and I hope that it's going to be helpful for you. It's box breathing. And sometimes you're in a clinical scenario where you've been told to go assess a patient, or you're just on the right at the end of your shift, and you have to take these bloods, or something's upset you, or you just need to like rebalance yourself. And I really think this is important. And due to time, I won't get us to do it together, but essentially what you do is you imagine a square box, and you inhale for 4 seconds, then you hold it for 4 seconds, then you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold it for 4 seconds. I'd say repeat that for about maybe 4 to 5 cycles. I find really helps, and it doesn't take a long time. 4 seconds times 5, 20 seconds. And what it does is that it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, and it does calm you down, and it calms your breath down. And I just find this really helpful. So when you're going to induction or your first day, before you open those doors, try this out and see how you feel. So just to wrap up now, F1 can be challenging, and it can be a steep learning curve. But my advice to you, and from Mind Health for medical students, is to take small steps every single day and reward yourself for that. Ask for help, and you will learn how to manage your patients safely, and you will learn how to do the admin that is quite a lot of F1, and also interact with your colleagues in the best way. That all comes with time, and I can't explain. In a couple of months, you will feel like a different person. I don't know how it happens. You just learn, and you get in the job, and sometimes it just clicks. You will be fine, trust me. But the first step is always the hardest one. An AME consultant said this to me once. I think I asked something, and I was like, oh, but I should already know that. I said, no one expects you as a new F1 to know everything. In fact, pretty much nothing. No one knows everything. Like, no one does. Not even the top consultant in the world knows everything. And you will not be alone, especially at the beginning. Like, you will not. I've not really been alone as an F1, even on nights when I'm on surgical nights and my friends on medical nights. Well, we tend to sit together and work through situations together. You will not be alone. And actually, legally by law, you're on a provisional license, which means that you do require to practice medicine under supervision. So you shouldn't really be just left alone to deal with something massive alone. It's not something that it should happen, but trust me, we are here to help. So just to summarize, this talk was about maintaining a positive well-being as an incoming F1. I just want to say, you guys have this. You have got this, even if you might not feel like you do. You have got this. You have got this far, and trust me, you probably have more medical knowledge at the moment than quite a lot of people, because you end up learning how to practice it and use the bits of it that are relevant over time. But trust me, you have got this, and you will be okay. Go in the first day from induction. First impressions count. First day on the ward. You might be absolutely like, oh my God, I have no idea how I got here. You might be like that, but do you know what? Try and go in with a positive attitude, even if you're nervous. Be nice to people, and always ask for support. We all do, and we cannot do this job without working together, like I said. Also, it's okay to acknowledge that it can be a mixed emotions experience. I have cried after some shifts, after losing patients. I've been really happy after things have gone well and the family's lovely and the patient can go home. I've been really happy when I finally got my portfolio done. I was like, I have gone through every single emotion. I've been scared, I've been stressed, I've been tired. It is such a mixed emotions experience, but that is also normal. It's only when it becomes abnormal that please do get that help early, because you deserve to stay in medicine and you have got this. Also, we are here to help you. I say we, anyone who is above F1, we are all in the same boat. We're here to help you. We're here to help the patients. Please ask for help and accept it. It's really vital to ensure for patient safety, and on that, please document everything. And it's okay to be that person who's like, can I also get your name please, and just write their name, because you just never know. And also it's good for your own learning experience. And escalate if you're unsure about something. As an example, I put a 2222 call out because a patient was deteriorating. I couldn't get hold of my SHO, couldn't get hold of the reg, and I was like, I just need more hands. They might not be in arrest, but they could be. 2222, and they're like, well done. Like they'd rather you call them and not need everybody in that team than you not call them and it be catastrophic. Like I said, take your annual leaves, please, please, please. Think about it tonight, think about it tomorrow. Take your annual leaves, all 9 of them, and treat yourself. Schedule time off each month if you can, if not every 6 weeks. For example, 1 weekend where you just rest, and be able to recognize when you and a colleague are more stressed than usual, more tired, and also think about things that you can control. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. If you're interested in working or collaborating with Mind Health, please do contact us an email as well. Our Instagram is Mind Health UK, and our website is mindhealthuk.org, where you can get a lot more information as well. I'm Dr. Christine Muhota. I'm the CEO, and I'm really, really proud of my team. And thank you so much for coming today. Just to finish off, I'd really appreciate some feedback on this talk, just for us to change it and see what actually was helpful for you, so that next year we can change it or keep it the same. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for this talk, Christine.
Thanks.
Christine will be happy to take any questions. If you have any, feel free to put them in the chat box. We'll be hanging around for a few minutes.
Wait, I'm just going to put back up the QR code, if that's okay. Just for a few minutes. But yeah, I'm going to hang around for a bit. Any questions, please ask.
And just a reminder that this talk is being recorded and will be available to watch on YouTube as well in your own time.
Cool. I hope you've got the QR code there. Any questions at all?
There's none as of yet in the chat box.
That's okay. Stop sharing now.
I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
So what are the key ethical and legal issues that can arise in a hospital, and how should they be managed?
The key ethical issues that can arise in a hospital. So as an F1, or just in general, there's a lot of things that could go on. And I think that the most important thing and how you manage it really is that whatever you do, document it. So if you have a conversation with a family member, document it. If you've got a difficult patient and they made you feel some type of way, document it. And the reason I'm saying this is because you're not the one who's going to necessarily be dealing with complaints directly. You might be the consultant, but you just want to cover your own back and make sure that what you've done is clinically sound. Document. If it's not written, it didn't happen. So in terms of ethics, a lot of people worry about things like deciding about CPR. You don't make that decision as an F1, it's always a consultant. A lot of things that are challenging decisions get made by your seniors, and that is how it's covered, if that makes sense. But for you personally at this level, I would say document it. And if you do think there's an ethical challenge or something that could go wrong, or you think this person could complain or anything like that, please ask ask for help. If that's okay.
Yeah. Can't see any more questions coming in.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, your talk was very thorough, Christine. You must have answered all their questions in your lecture.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I just, yeah, wanted to just instill some confidence that it will be okay. It will be fine.
As Christine stressed throughout her talk, always feel free to ask for help. Yeah, there's always help around in the hospital.
Always. Thanks so much for having me as well. I really, really appreciate it. And I just wish you all the best of luck. You'll be fine.
Okay.
Thank
All right
you.
then. Thank you, Christine. Okay. Thanks everyone for attending. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.